Last night, in conjunction with the Pennsylvania State Police, Federal Bureau of Investigation, detectives arrested 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, on a warrant for murder of Ethan, Zana, Madison, and Kaylee.
Recently, Steve and Christy Goncalves did an interview talking about seeing Bryan Kohberger in the courtroom. We're going to be going over their statements, and then we're going to talk about the psychology of what you wear in court and how it could affect the outcome.
It makes me sick that he sits there in his suit.
Let's dive in a little bit. What is the impact the defendant's appearance may have on the public? Why a suit and tie? What do clothes have to do with a person's guilt or innocence? Shouldn't it be all about the evidence? Let's take a closer look at these and many more elements of court appearance psychology, as well as attempt to consider the various ramifications they may have on the trial's outcome.
It makes me sick that he sits there in his suit.
Wait a minute. You ready, Jay?
And I'm thinking, why is he sitting in a big old judge chair and all dressed up in a fresh haircut? And I've looked it up. In the same room with him and know what he has done. It makes me sick that he sits there in his suit and he sits there and taps his hands and you're just sitting there and he sits there and rocks back and forth in the chair, and I'm thinking, why is he sitting in a big old judge chair and all dressed up in a fresh haircut? And I've looked it up, never seen another murderer or whatever he is convicted up to this point of a case, not in handcuffs, not in shackles, one or the other or both, and in orange.
This was an issue back in September for the Goncalves family. There was an article from Fox News written by Michael Ruiz, and it said the following. Bryan Kohberger's initial court appearances were in an orange jail jumpsuit, but after, he began showing up dressed up in a suit and tie. The Goncalveses said that they tried to find out who paid for the suits and get other information about the defense budget through a public records request, but it was denied under a gag order on the case. Steve Goncalves said, "They won't tell us, but I witnessed the moment they agreed not to handcuff him in court." Let's get into the psychology behind clothing that's chosen by a defendant in court. And I was lucky to find this information on psychologycorner.com. This is written by Lucia Grossaro, and the article is titled Black Suit versus Orange Jumpsuit, Bryan Kohberger Trial, Strategy, Commentary. Even though the don't judge a book by its cover saying is tossed around a lot in public settings, the truth is that we do factor in someone's appearance when globally assessing them and building an image about not only their physical attractiveness, but also about their personality traits. We even treat people differently based on how they look. People standing trial are dependent on the public's opinion of them, especially that of the jury, but also that of the larger audience. What they wear, how they style their hair, how clean and put together they look, it all sets the scene for a bigger context, the evaluation of this person's alleged actions and intentions. So yes, Bryan Kohberger and the defense team need to take clothing into consideration as well. There are previous situations where a defendant's clothing, as well as the use of visible shackles and leg irons, even triggered the reversal of convictions. In Riles versus the state, the Supreme Court of South Carolina reversed a conviction, concluding that, quote, trial counsel was ineffective for not objecting to Riles proceeding to trial dressed in prison attire and for not requesting a continuance to provide proper clothing for Riles. I don't think anyone would want a significant trial and its conclusions to be jeopardized by such matters. This is mainly an interest on the prosecution side, to allow the defendant to wear clothing that triggers no prejudice and no further issues for the legal proceedings. But what would the defendant gain from designing his appearance in a way that doesn't include the jail jumpsuit? Couldn't he or she just play the victim card after the fact? It could help them, right? Well, there seem to be more advantages to wearing carefully chosen clothes to an event that will decide whether you will spend time in prison, how long a sentence would be, and even if you get to live or die as a result of the trial. However, there are disadvantages as well. Let's take a closer look at the main psychological implications and effects regarding the Idaho murders suspect's appearance in court. The psychological implications of Bryan Kohberger's suit and tie. He looks like a normal person, not someone accused of murder. It also gives the public an opportunity to envision a version of Kohberger from before his arrest and accusations. The suit and tie look humanizes him, and Kohberger looks professional in a suit and tie. The young man was a PhD student in the field of criminology. This is him as a future professional. He means business and conveys the qualities that we usually associate with respectable professionals. Yeah, we're getting fooled by clothing very often, and the thing is, we know better. We just choose, as a society, to fall for the same trivial things over and over again. The height also helps him here. Instead of looking intimidating, he looks dominant, but in a good way. A leader-type dominance. He also looks serious and trustworthy. The clothing helps Kohberger convey to those watching that he is a dignified, determined young man with a purpose. How could someone so driven and conscientious commit such a horrible crime? One can almost hear the defense saying that during the trial. There are some advantages of Bryan Kohberger's choice to wear a suit and tie, but we also must consider the potential disadvantages of part of this strategy. Some people may expect an individual accused of murder to accept his fate, especially if he knows he did it. The orange jumpsuit is part of the consequences of his actions. This may also lead to a more lenient conviction. And even if the suspect is not guilty of the crime, still, they somehow ended up in that context and must act in a way that respects the legal proceedings as an extension of the community's will. Kohberger may seem defiant and disrespectful. Changing one's appearance may be seen as a way to manipulate the jurors and the general public. In a sense, it is exactly that, and all of us engage in the practice one way or another. The suit and tie may trigger inferiority-related biases. Who is this guy? Who is accused of 4 first-degree murders, trying to make himself look more important than other people? With his PhD and fancy degrees. Does he think he's better than us? This is a potential reaction from members of the public who may struggle in their own life with certain inferiority issues. This, as well, may work against Bryan Kohberger. It's a fragile balance that the suspect and his team must consider and maintain at all times during the legal proceedings. Every choice will count to some degree toward the trial's conclusions and the public reaction to Kohberger. Ultimately, the suit and tie as an option picked from many other available ones. And ultimately, we want to address the actual choice of the suit and tie as an option picked from many other available ones. The defendant in a criminal trial does not have to wear clothes provided by the jail, but there are so many options. Why would the defense go for a formal wear instead of, let's say, casual attire? Something that may showcase their client's personality traits better. Well, first of all, if your client is either too plain or an actual evil individual showcasing their true self won't help the case. The defense team needs to tell a story, and clothes must fit and help their narrative. In this case, as it happened in many others, I imagine that the defense wants to make Bryan Kohberger look like a serious, responsible, smart young man. The suit conveys this better than jeans and t-shirts. Also, they went for a black suit instead of a gray or a dark blue one. The black goes with grave tones and the severity of an event or context. It shows that they, as a team, respect the grief of the families who lost their loved ones. It's almost respectful and mournful, a good choice, whoever made it. The list of other notorious defendants who wore suits during their public criminal trials include Dennis Rader, the BTK killer. He wore an off-white suit and tie, and Ted Bundy, gray, brown, and blue suits. While Rader was only trying to get a more lenient sentence, Bundy wanted to get away with his crimes and walk out of the court as a free man. Rader was trying to only impress the judge, while Bundy was using his charisma to win over the jury. Rader got sentenced to 175 years in prison without the possibility of parole, while Bundy received the death penalty. Just to show you that a suit may help, but it won't make or break a trial. The role of an individual's appearance in court is mainly aimed at diminishing prejudice. It also helps build the defense, but ultimately, the evidence speaks louder than looks. Now let's go a little deeper beyond the clothing, but let's look at the attitude and the demeanor in court. And to help us with this, we're going to hear from Robin Drake, who is retired FBI in the behavioral analysis program. And this came from the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Bruschi. He's going to talk about Bryan Kohberger's behavior in court from the beginning compared to now.
It struck me right away. Having that high steeple that he had sitting at the table there in his chair in his suit, it keeps following the arc of what I have said and you and I have talked about from the very beginning with him. He's got this aura of, I know more than everyone, and that this was a science experiment that he did, that he handed in about how he studied how to kill and murder people. He put this thing all together and he handed it in for a grade, and he can't believe he got an F because he got caught and all the evidence is against him, and he can't believe it. So he still has that air of arrogance and confidence that I'm going to get away with it. Why? I think so to this point, I think his defense attorney has done a really, really, really good job of battling absolutely everything.
I love this analysis because this is something I've been saying since the beginning. His lawyer is only going along with him for no appeal purposes, so he can't say he didn't get adequate counsel. We've been talking about this for months.
But I don't think she prepped him well for the courtroom on this one. I think she is feeding into his narcissism and his overconfidence. So when you have someone that is validating that we got this, you know what you're doing, we're good, we're going to keep battling this, it's feeding into his own self-impression and self-opinion of himself, which gives him that air of superiority that he thinks of himself in that courtroom. That's not what you want to show a jury.
No.
You want to show something different than that. You know, I don't want to say what you should or shouldn't show, but having that kind of arrogance and overconfidence, I think it was a fatal flaw of his in that courtroom that day. It's just fascinating because his behavior in that courtroom, it's elevated. It's escalated from where it was at the very beginning. He had this look of curiosity at the very beginning when he was first arrested in the courtroom. And he kind of sat with his arms kind of hunched down like this. Mm-hmm. He's a little more contrite looking. Granted, surprised and shocked always that he was caught is always the impression I got from him non-verbally. But from going from this at the very beginning when he's arrested to this, the last time, someone's feeding that. Yeah, like he believed that he had, again, if it's him, he believed he had the perfect way to murder people, to murder 2 women that went sideways and wound up killing 4. So he had the perfect solution to everything he was doing. He thought it was going to be perfect. And then when it wasn't, he looked so shocked and surprised And now he's back in that fantasy mode. Remember, these people fantasize to themselves that it's going much better than it actually is. Mm-hmm. And so, because his lawyer's feeding him that, and there you go.
A lot of information out there just about what you wear to court, but let me know what you guys think of this information. Do you think that Ann C. Taylor is feeding into Bryan Kohberger's cockiness in the courtroom? Or do you think that's just all on him? This FBI agent seems to think someone's feeding that arrogance. Could it be the girls writing him in jail? Who is feeding Bryan Kohberger's ego? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Keep the conversation going. Make sure you like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video. Be sure to check out my other videos and playlists for more true crime content. And if that's not enough, you can join our Patreon. Don't have a tinfoil hat? It's okay. We'll make you one. It's that easy. See you guys in the next video.
See you later. Bye.